This is a press release uh, outlining the death of Staff Sergeant Ryan Messeth. He was a Green Beret. He died in Iraq in January of 2008. The way he died was by electrocution when he stepped into the shower and was electrocuted due to a water pump that wasn't grounded. And I don't know Ryan Messeth, but we are kind of connected because after his death, Congress mandated that KBR would send licensed electricians to Iraq to evaluate every building and every system, identify any safety hazards, and repair them immediately, and then bring the entire military base up to the, I think at the time, 2008 electrical code. And in 2009, I went to Iraq for that purpose. They put a master electrician on every military base and hired a lot of American electricians, but also electricians from other nations. Since I have a master electrical license, I was responsible for a military base in Baghdad called D4 Falcon. And I had 50 electricians underneath me. A lot of Americans, some from England, Scotland, Kenya, Kosovo, and a lot of, most of the helper electricians were from India and Sri Lanka. But this kind of ties into our lesson for today, because what they did on they did it on every base, but on my particular base we had 778 buildings. So they took the available days for this operation to take place. I think it was like a year. And they divided the number of days by the number of buildings and determined that they needed to get 10 buildings inspected every day. I may have said that wrong. Maybe it was buildings divided by days. But at any rate, they determined they needed 10 buildings inspected every day. And these buildings, of course, were different sizes. Some of them were 2-room living quarters with a bathroom in between. Some of them were 3-story barracks with like 300 rooms in them. And they really didn't care whether it was a 300-unit barracks or a 2-bedroom CHU, containerized housing unit. They wanted 10 of them every day. And so every evening they had a meeting, a pod or plan of the day meeting, and everyone had to report their numbers. And if you didn't get 10 buildings, then I got called up to the operations area and they asked me, why didn't you get 10 buildings today? Well, some of the buildings were really big. Well, we don't care. You need 10 buildings a day. You only got 9 today. That means you got to get 11 tomorrow. So we're going to expect to see 11 tomorrow. And every day this went on. Okay. Now, I had my own methods for making sure I never had to go to one of those meetings. But at any rate, that's what we're going to talk about a lot about that today in our lesson plan. So that's kind of where I learned how to, put pressure on your crew to, get the production that you need. And it's a very effective an important method. So let's dive into this thing. Okay, let's start right here on the Projects tab. Open your project and put an address in here. Now it can be your home address, it can be your neighbor's address, it can be an address of a business down the street. Doesn't really matter what address you pick, but we need to put one in here. I've added some features that are going to require an address. And it has to be a legitimate address, but it can be a business. This particular one right here is the Walmart in Tampa, Florida. So do me a favor and add that in, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so as I mentioned, you want to put data in front of your employees every day. One thing I learned a long time ago is that when people see things in print, they believe it. So you need to make some kind of presentation to them. You have to show them the data and how they're performing. Now, depending on the size of your project, there's a couple things to consider. If it's a small project, you may want to show that information to the entire crew so everybody knows what's going on. If it's a large project, you are probably just going to want to include key individuals like your foreman. But every day you want to show them how they're performing in relation to the actual budget. Now, on smaller projects, I try to do this first thing in the morning. I have my foreman get their initial paperwork out of the way, safety stuff, and then let their leads get their crews started. I like to have a good, fast start in the morning, so I don't want to hold up that production. On larger projects, I prefer to have an afternoon meeting because I want my foreman to get out in the field, get their crews moving, and I don't want to interrupt that process. The project that I'm on right now has 150 workers, 150, 160, somewhere in there. And we are working long hours and long days because we're behind schedule. So the company that I'm working for made the decision to bring their foreman in an hour early, which is not a bad idea normally. But now we're up to 12-hour days. So bringing them in an hour early means that they're working 13 hours if our meeting takes an hour, and sometimes it does. So for that reason, I'm trying to encourage them to have an afternoon meeting with these foremen. That way, they can sneak out of the field a few hours before the end of the day, and we can have our meeting, and their lead people can keep the project moving while they're out of the field, and then they can return to the field and help close out the day. So a lot of things for you to consider there. You'll just have to make your own decisions on what might be the best time and who to involve. Okay, so generally when I have my plan of the day or pod meeting, I'll like to look at this schedule because this kind of tells what's happening right here. Now there's a couple of things I want to point out on this sheet that you're looking at right here, which is our project that we've been working on. First, you notice that I've added action items and that we've already started work. So we have about 4 days worth of work complete here. And those action items were checked off prior to starting the work. So if those action items aren't checked off, we've got no business, in my opinion, starting those tasks except, under rare circumstances. But ideally, the action items are checked off prior to beginning the tasks. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to point out, just to eliminate confusion, is that the date of this recording is the 16th of August over here. But our work is only completed up to the 22nd of July. That's because, our class isn't progressing as fast as the calendar days, okay? But one of the things that I recently added is this material field over here, and you'll notice that that week is outlined with a thin red line, okay? That's to capture your attention and help you to see the week that you need to be mapping your materials out for, okay? Now, that indicator there is adjustable, and you adjust it right over here on the work week offset. You'll notice that it says -1 week. I had to bring it back a week to make it look right with the progress we've made on our class, okay, instead of calendar days. But normally you would want that to be at least 3 weeks out from you on smaller projects, and on larger projects you will probably want that to be 4 to 6 weeks out. Now, currently, I've noticed that we're having some supply chain issues. I don't know if everybody's noticed that. I'm sure you have. But materials are difficult to find and they have long lead times. So you need to adjust for, factor that in. And basically that draws your attention to that column. So what you're going to do every week is scroll down that column, see what tasks you have planned 3 to 6 weeks out, or maybe even more, and check your materials for those tasks and make sure that you either have them on site or you have them ordered and set to receive before that week arrives. Then every week that material reminder will move out another week. So then every week you'll scroll down a new week and you'll check all your material needs. But it doesn't just include material. There's other things like equipment, storage bins, whatever you might need on site that work to complete that week's worth of work. You need to address that and make your list and make sure it gets ordered and you're able to receive it before that week's worth of work starts. So just a handy little tool to constantly remind you, hey, we need to be planning our material for this week so that we make sure when we get to it that we're going to have what we need on site. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out is that I have entered in some data against our timesheets. Remember, we made out a 2-week schedule for our crews, our 2 crews, our underground feeder conduit and our underground branch conduit. And you notice that that has filled in with the green bar to show our actual progress. And you probably noticed that under the underground feeder conduit, the last day actually turned red. That's because I skewed the numbers to show that they've gone over on hours. Okay, so that's going to throw up a red flag to you when you go to have your meeting with your crew, and you're going to have the opportunity to say, hey, you know, what happened here? What kind of problems are you encountering? We notice that you're going over on hours, and whatever problem that is, we need to solve that to get this thing, you know, minimize our losses on this task right here. And that leads me to the next revision that I just made. And you'll notice if you go up to the date field and click on it, it will pull up a daily log for you to fill out. Now, the best time to fill out this daily log is while you're having a discussion about the work, because a lot of times during those meetings, delays, problems with the project will come up, and you can note those delays in there. You need to note your delays because there may be liquidated damages assessed against your project if you complete late. And if someone else is causing those delays, you're going to want to have that on record so that you can you know, provide documentation to show what happened, what day it happened, whether it was a rain day or maybe another subcontractor hadn't completed their work and so you couldn't complete your work, or the general contractor held you up for some reason, whatever. Also, one thing that I forgot to include in here is materials. I'm going to add a box for materials below here. I'll probably have that done today. But a lot of times material needs come up during discussions that you're having. You're going to want to get those noted in there so that your purchasing agent, whether that's you or someone else in the company, can solve those material problems to keep your project moving. Now, the reason that I wanted to put the date in here is that this thing will auto-populate your weather for you. You can just click autofill and it'll automatically fill in. So when you open a new one, I've already opened this one and played with this a little bit, but when you open the page, this information will all be blank. Just click autofill. It'll fill it in for you automatically, so that you note your weather. And I think most of you probably know that will help substantiate any rain delays. And also, everyone likes to include the weather every day. That just helps substantiate the fact that, you know, this was current and filled out on the right day because the weather matches the conversation and things like that. Okay, so that's the purpose of having the date to your project in there. These will all file under the daily logs page, so you'll be able to go back and access those and update them. Safety concerns need to be noted, visitors on site, material or equipment needs can be noted in there. Just anything that happens on your project, if there's any type of incident that happens, whether it was property damage or a safety incident, you can note those on there so you have a record of it. There is no better time to fill out this daily report than when you're having your daily meeting and you're getting all of this fresh information coming into you. Make sure you pop this open and make those notes right away. You can tab between the daily log and the Gantt chart. So as the discussion continues, you can toggle back to it and continue to fill that in. And that will give you a good report every day of exactly what happened on your project. So you're going to want to explain this little red bar right here. Maybe, you know, they were digging underground and they encountered some rocks and that slowed them down. Just whatever the issue was, make sure you get it documented. Documentation is king, and when your project completes, you want a good written history of what happened. If you end up having to litigate against liquidated damages, you want to have a lot of good information to substantiate your claims. This Gantt chart and the daily log backed up by the 2-week rolling schedule that shows the exact hours attributed to different tasks. All of that documentation ties together to paint a real good picture of exactly what happened on your project. And, you know, I've already used that information to help contractors in the past. So it's very important. Make sure you stay up on that. Now, I will show you that those daily logs, as far as the weather update, I think it goes back 3 days. So if you don't stay current on that, you're going to lose that weather feature. And I'll just open this one here because this is several weeks back from the current date. Okay, and if I try to autofill this, you'll see that, you know, it's going too far back. It can't bring up that weather data. Now, this is kind of in beta right now, meaning that I'll put this together and I'm going to test it and probably make some improvements to it. Like today, I'll add a material column or section there. And I may subscribe to this data feature, and so that I can capture weather information going backwards. But if you think about it, the point of the whole thing is to do these reports in a timely fashion and capture that weather per date. And, you know, if I make it backdate, you know, a month, then that gives you the ability to go in there and doctor things, right? So it kind of takes a little bit of the legitimacy away from the daily report. That's why you need to make sure you fill these out every day and capture that information. And then going forward, we'll see what kind of adjustments we need to make. I'll get feedback from my customers and see what they want to see in there. You guys are welcome to make suggestions yourself. So I'd love to hear from you if you have the opportunity to use this. Let me know what you think about it, and let me know what kind of changes you might recommend. Okay, so just to recap here a little bit, I want you to understand the process. It starts with the 2-week rolling schedule, and we're going to record our crew's actual time against each task. Now, by providing them with a schedule, a 2-week rolling schedule that tells them exactly what to work on, what order to work on it, and how much time they have to complete it, that right there is going to create a sense of urgency on their part, and that will help your production immensely. Okay, that's the first thing that's going to push production. The second thing that's going to push your production is that when you show them that data right in front of their face, here's what's happening, here's how you're performing with this Gantt chart in this daily pod meeting, that's going to reinforce that urgency on their part, okay? And then, of course, we want to have a good record of what actually happened, because a lot of times when crews slip behind, it's not their fault. It could be materials that didn't show up. It could be errors in the estimate, which will be identified here. It could be other subcontractors or even the general contractor holding them up, weather delays. I mean, as you progress through this project and your clients or your bosses want to know what's going on your project, when you can provide them with all of this information, a snapshot of every day showing them exactly what went on, and why certain things happened, that is valuable information that, they can use later in court, that they can use to refine their estimating system, to refine their method of installation. It can show vulnerabilities in your supply chain and how you order and get materials to your site. If your company is throttling your material and it's slowing you down, you dump that data in front of their face and it's going to open their eyes. You can literally show them that it's costing them money. Also, because we're working against our estimate data, manpower is really easy to prove. It's right there at the bottom of the Gantt chart, shows you how many workers you need every day to complete your work. And if they're telling you something different, like, you don't need that many guys, you have the evidence to tell them they're wrong, to show them they're wrong. Now, personally, I don't think that anybody should listen to anybody's explanation that they can't prove mathematically. If they can't prove something to me mathematically, like how many workers they need on site, then as far as I'm concerned, all it is hearsay. But with these tools I'm giving you here, you can actually prove these things mathematically. And it's hard to argue with true numbers, especially when they're the ones that are providing you with the estimate and the estimate data. And if the estimate data dictates a certain crew size and they don't think they should give it to you, they're shooting themselves in the foot and holding up their own project. Okay? So all very important and valuable stuff. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and get it out to you now. And next week, we're going to dive deeper into timesheets. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get that data back into the timesheet and capture it every week, and some of the other features involved with that. So we'll take a little deeper dive into the 2-week rolling schedules next week. I'm going to close this lesson out with some more advice, because I work on a lot of projects and for a lot of contractors, different size projects. And these foremen that you deal with generally get promoted to that position because they're good at installing material and they're knowledgeable about their trade. But that doesn't make them good foremen. In order to manage crews, they need some training on how to do that. They've already learned their trade, but that doesn't mean that they can manage manpower profitably. And as most of you know, I offer free foreman training. It's right here on my website. You just click this button right there, and I will hook you up with free foreman training. What I've done is I've taken my videos off the YouTube channel. I've put them on my website. It's an automated system. You sign up for this free introductory foreman training, and it's a 12-day process. Every day they'll get a video, a short video to watch. Most of you have probably been through that. I hope you have if you're taking my advanced class. But it's free. It's right there and it's free. So you can take your people who are going to be working under you with this program, and you can teach them the skills that they need in order to be effective and efficient and to succeed. And they need that training. If they don't have that training, then this is all just going to be a big mystery to them, and they're not going to be able to execute it as well as you need them to. So I'm encouraging you to please, anyone in your company, anyone working underneath you, give them the link to my website, have them click on this button. All they have to do is enter their email so that I know they're not a bot, and then it'll send them a message. It'll ask them to confirm that that's their email. I need to do that because there's a lot of spam on the internet and a lot of bots running around trying to grab information. I just want to verify that it's an email to a real person. Once they verify that, it'll send them a video every day for 12 days and teach them all of the information that you need them to know in order to work underneath you with this program right here. So free stuff. I encourage you to take advantage of it. Just send them through the training, and I think your life will become a lot easier. Okay, everybody have a great week, and we'll talk again next week.